Well, good morning, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. It's Tuesday, so Tag Tuesday, so I'm going to bring a tag to you, and I'm going to do the self-aware reader tag. I was tagged by Steve Donahue, and the original was done by Courtney Ferrier. And I watched both of those videos. Both of them were good, and I've watched a couple of others. But I wanted to, like I said, Steve tagged me. I wanted to put my 2 cents in. And even before I get going, though, things are really starting to get real here in Iowa with the virus and everything, and the governor really kind of put clamps down on things. And for me, I've been up since about 2 o'clock this morning because I couldn't sleep. I woke up and just my mind's racing and worries and everything. So I'm really glad, to have this tag to do. And I know I have a lot of other tags, and I have not forgot about them. I have a whole Google Doc put together with tags that I need to do. So those of you that have tagged me and wonder why I'm not doing it, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I just haven't got to them yet. I kind of go in flourishes when I've got the time at home. I have a little 3-year-old that likes to run around and make noise, and you probably don't want that noise in the background. So if you'll bear with me, if you keep tagging me, I will do them. I might not get them done like in a couple days, but it might be a couple weeks, but I will get them done, I promise you. I know I have one in store that the Bookish Bryants did, and they tagged me on an anniversary tag. We have all our answers put together. My wife and I have actually got her to, she's not going to be on camera, but she's going to be just off camera. She doesn't want to be on camera, but she's going to do that one with me. We have it all set. We just haven't had a chance to video it. So those are coming, but I guess with, telling you, life is getting a little stressful just because of everything going on, and the governor, kind of clamping down on things, and that it needs to happen. We've had an influx in cases and stuff, and so it does need to happen. It just causes stress, just like it does for everybody. But anyway, I wanted to thank you, BookTube. I wanted to thank you for this last year. You've given me an outlet. My anxiety would have been through the roof, and I have had BookTube to come to. I'm glad I discovered this last December, and it's just given me an outlet for books, creativity, and all of that kind of stuff. And anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, because you have kept my anxiety at lower levels with keeping my mind off of things. But anyway, you probably don't want to listen to that. You clicked on this so that you could hear the self-aware reader tag. So here we go again. Tagged by Steve Donahue. The original was by Courtney Ferrier. Go check out their channels. I'll put the link down below in the description. Go check them out. And if you haven't liked them or commented or subscribed to their channels, be sure to do that. So anyway, the first question was, what most draws you into a novel or story and makes you want to keep reading? Is it the plot, the characters, the writing style, atmosphere, or something else? And I think for me, one of the biggest things that really draws me in right off the get-go in a story, and I'm thinking fiction, but nonfiction could really go into this as well. But just setting the scene. I myself, I'm a visual person. I always have been. I like to visualize what's going on, and I want the author to set the scene and give me all the visuals I would be looking at, because I like to close my eyes and just, close my eyes and just put myself in the story, and imagine myself in the story. I'm very active with my imagination as I'm reading, and I try to encourage my kids at school to do that same thing, because that just makes it entertaining. That's what if you're going to use it as an escape, you got to escape. You got to get into the story. And so I really want to be drawn into that story. And, there's authors that do it better than others, obviously. I know there's one author, not everybody likes him. He's kind of a like him or hate him almost. But I like I like him because he draws the picture for you. Stephen King, I think, does a great job of setting the scene and just giving you all kinds of details. I know some people disagree and they think he does too much, and that's why his books are usually big, thick monsters. They think he does maybe too much of it. For me, I like that because it's, it allows me to step into the story and not have a doubt about where things are and what's going on. And so I like that. And then right after that, I want a good character. I want, I want to feel vested in the story. If I don't give a crap about the character, I'm not going to want to read the story. The character, to me, and there's multiple ways of looking at this question, but I like to have a character that I feel vested in, that I feel like I either like them or hate them. Hopefully like them, but that's what I look for. So I really think that the author needs to have good characters, and then not to mention, I really like another technique that I like is when they explain their character, they'll give you some info about the character at the beginning, but I also like a author that as the story goes on, they build on that character. It isn't right at the beginning, you get the character and then you're done. I want to see that character, build upon that character. I guess that's character development, but tell the backstories of those characters so that you understand maybe the psychology of what's going on, and you understand where that character's coming from, why they're acting the way they're acting. I like that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how I feel about fiction. And then if I'm looking at my nonfiction, when I'm reading that, I don't want a one-sided account. I want the good, the bad, and the ugly. I like reading the nitty-gritty stuff. That's what makes it entertaining to me. And so I want that in a nonfiction book. So number 2 is, what is a convention or trope that will immediately turn you off in your reading experience with a novel or story? I have to be I have to be honest with this. I had to look up trope and convention, and I am not a jargon guy. I don't understand a lot of this, especially with literature, because it wasn't my major and stuff. I'm a history guy, and even in social studies, when I'm teaching in education, I don't know all of the jargon. I'm not very good at it. I do know when they talk about it and they start explaining it to me, I'm like, oh, okay, I do that. And I'm guessing literature reading is the same way, that if I could have somebody explain it to me, I would understand what these words meant a little bit better. But anyway, long story short here, no need for you to know how ignorant I am. You don't need to comment on that. I think that, so the question was, what is a convention or trope that will immediately turn you off in your reading experience with a novel or story? And for me, I don't want something that's way over my head. If it's way over my head and I don't understand it, then I'm turned off. I don't like big time academic stuff where they're using, real big words. If a little word will suffice, use it. You don't need to, in my opinion, you don't need to try to impress the reader with your vocabulary. You can get points across without doing that, and that's for me. And this is fiction or nonfiction, because you see it in both. You see it where authors try to impress you with their styles, and I'm just like, really, you could have cut out half of this by just saying this. And that to me, when they start doing that, I get lost and I put the book away. And I don't DNF too many books, but if they're talking way over my head, I'm gonna DNF it. And I really get into this with, like, in real life. When I'm talking to somebody in a conversation, if they are just throwing out big words to try to impress me, I immediately am turned off, and I probably am going to walk away from that conversation as soon as I can. We have people who come into the building every once in a while, or at conferences and stuff, and you get certain people that they want to impress you so much that they try to use big words, and then they try to in the end, what it ends up being is, oh, you don't know what that means? And it's like they're trying to make you feel bad about stuff. And I hate that. Don't talk down at me. Okay? Don't talk down at me. I don't do it to you. Don't do it to me. And books, to me, are the same thing. Don't talk down at me. And I think a good author won't talk down at you. They'll bring you along in the story, and they'll explain things. So, number 3, what most appeals to you when reading nonfiction and makes you want to keep reading? For me, in nonfiction, I want characters like in biographies. I want the main person in the biography to be approachable. Yeah, in a lot of cases you see, and I still read older biographies, but in a lot of cases they'll put people up on a pedestal and they don't tell any of the negative stuff in their character. And I want to see all of that. I want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to see, because I understand that humans are not perfect. I'm not perfect. I don't expect them to be perfect. And I want to know the whole character. Matter of fact, the nitty-gritty stuff's what makes it entertaining. That's why, for me, I think nonfiction is better than fiction because it's real life, and there's just as much. A good author, when they pull out all those stories, it becomes just as enjoyable, just as entertaining as fiction. I think of Alexander Hamilton. That was a book I read recently. And in that book, or in his life story, he did a lot of great things as the Secretary of the Treasury, setting things up. He was, you could consider him a hero in the Revolution. He was a child genius, in his climb from poverty to fame. But he also did a lot of negative stuff. He ticked off a lot of people. He had that hard side to him where, you either agreed with him or you were wrong. And, that's part of that entertainment factor. He had an affair, and that's not good, don't get me wrong, but it spices up the story, and it really happened. And so why not tell about that? And then how did it affect his life? So to me, those little details appeal to me, where they're not perfect human beings. When I read about George Washington, I absolutely love, I think it's entertaining, the stories about Washington and his temper, where he kept a stone cold face most of the time, but when you pushed him to the brink of losing his temper, when he lost it, he lost it. And I love reading those stories. There's the story when they came out of their encampment at Valley Forge and they go to attack the British, and he is sent Charles Lee, and he sent him, and he was supposed to go attack, and he's retreating instead, and he rides his horse up to meet Lee, and he basically cusses him up one side and down the other, is how a lot of the stories go. And stuff like that makes it entertaining for me. He's a real human being, because guess what? I have cases where I do that, where I get so mad that I blow up and I lose my cool. And that makes them human. That makes them approachable. Don't be afraid to tell those stories. Let's see here. So I don't like that one-sided, biased point of view. I don't like those. As they're telling that story, something else I wrote down here was, as they're telling those stories, I don't necessarily think less of that person when I read those type of stories. They were human. They made mistakes. And I try not to judge them a whole lot, just simply because I'm not living in that time period. I am not living those experiences, because who knows, that could be me. So why would I point the finger? Every time you point the finger, there's always fingers pointing right back at you. So be careful when you point the finger. And so when I read, I want all those nitty-gritty stories included in it. And like I said, I don't judge them for it. I think it just makes them human. And then the other thing, when I was watching Steve's video, he talks about, a lot of academics have trouble when they're writing a story that is readable. They write on this academic level that is so boring, nobody would ever get past the first chapter, if they even get the first chapter done. Don't do that. Make your story approachable. Make your story readable. Make it entertaining. You can include the nitty-gritty stuff, but make it entertaining. You want your reader to continue through the book. And I thought of a lot of good examples of writers. A few of them that came to my mind was that do a good job of writing academically, but they give you a very, very entertaining, readable story, fast-paced. I thought of Nathaniel Philbrick, H.W. Brands, David Hackett Fisher, Joseph Ellis. I think they all tell a wonderful story that is highly entertaining, fast-paced. It moves along, and but yet it's a academic story. So question number 4. What is a convention or trope in nonfiction that will turn you off in your reading experience? I was listening to Steve on this one, and I agreed with him. Let your subject tell its story. He was talking about, and he did a much better. You have to go check his video out. He did a much better job of explaining this, but I didn't know how to answer it. But then I got to listening to him, and it made perfect sense. So sorry, Steve, I'm going to steal your answer on this one. But he talked about let your subject tell its story. Don't add fictional flourishes. And I agree with that. You don't need to do that because real life has its flourishes all of its own. You just got to tell the story. So don't turn it into a fictional story. Good nonfiction doesn't need it, and I agree with Steve on that. Real life is just as entertaining. That's really why I like nonfiction more than I like fiction, is you get the same great stories, but it's real. It actually happened. And so, yeah, that's my answer for that one. So number 5, would you say you read more for pleasure and enjoyment or more to learn and exercise your brain? Now this one is a combo answer because I read for both. Nonfiction, if you follow the channel, nonfiction is primarily what I read. Those are my favorite books. To me, I love to learn and I love to exercise my brain. There's always stuff out there to learn. That's why I'm always telling my kids, find something a subject you like and then go read about it. There's books about everything. And so I truly believe that nonfiction, at least to me, nonfiction is it's not only my thing that helps me learn and exercise my brain, but it's also my pleasure reading. I get pleasure out of reading that. Now, during highly stressful times, sometimes I go away from it a little bit. Like this year, I've went away from it just a little bit because for me, I do need to be able to pay attention. It's entertaining, it's enjoyable, I love it, but I also want to be able to pay attention. I don't want to get lost because my mind wandered off on, what's tomorrow going to bring. So it's both, I guess. Would you say you read more for pleasure and entertainment or in enjoyment or to learn and exercise? It's a combo for me. I do it for both. Number 6, which type of books are you likely to rate more highly and enjoy more overall? Brain candy, so like pleasure and enjoyment books, or brain protein, learning and exercise books? And I kind of answered that one in that last question. Nonfiction's the way to go. I'm a protein reader. Life's too short not to be learning more, and there's a lot to learn, and I will never know it all. That's why, when my wife asks me, why do you buy so many books on George Washington? Why do you buy so many books on Abraham Lincoln or the Revolution and the Civil War and stuff? Because there's always more to learn, and I love reading those stories. It's my favorite, eras to read about, and so I'm a protein reader. That's my enjoyment. Number 7, do you have a sense early on whether or not the book you're reading will be a 5-star read or a book that you will really like if you don't rate on the 5-star rating? Has a book ever surprised you in this regard? In my opinion, most of the time, I think, at least, that I could figure out whether it's going to be a 5-star reading within the first couple chapters, or at least my 5-star rating. That, again, it goes back to that author's got to get, has to hook me. If they haven't hooked me, I'm not going to be entertained, and I might not finish the story. And so they've got to really hook me and draw me in. Now, has there been some surprises? Yeah. I mean, there's always the exception to the rule. I think of Michener's book, The Drifters, that I read earlier this year. the book, it kind of caught my attention, and then the story was a slower paced story in parts, in places, and I had to put it down, and I had to come back, put it down, come back. But I'm really glad I finished it, because in the end it became one of my higher rated books because of all the stuff it dealt with, all of the issues it dealt with. And again, he drew me in with the characters. That was what got me right off the get-go. And then the story eventually, he built on those characters and told backstories for those characters. And it was awesome. It ended up being awesome, but I don't know in the first couple chapters if I would have considered that a 5-star rating at the beginning. I'm hoping that when I go back and try to read Tales of the South Pacific, it becomes the same way. I have struggled with that book. But typically with my readings, I can figure out pretty quickly if I'm going to like it through the whole book. Number 8, considering books that you've rated 5 stars in the past, or if you don't rate them, then books you really loved, do you think you would feel the same way about them now? Why or why not? Yes, I do. For the most part, I have liked every one of them I liked early on. And that's why I keep them up over here on the shelves. That's why I keep them there. I like them. I reread them again. I've used this idea before in my videos. A good book is kind of like an old Western that you watch over and over again. You've seen it 100 different times. You can repeat every line, but you still thoroughly enjoy it. At the end of the Rocky movie, Rocky's going to win, and you know how the story goes, but the hair on my arm still stands up. These books that I keep rereading, those are the same way. I thoroughly enjoy the story. And so that's why I keep coming back to them. And so, yes, those books that I rated highly early on in life, I still rate highly. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. There have been books that I've went back to and I'm like, man, why did I like this so much? And I unhauled them. I got rid of some of them because I just didn't like them as much as when I did early on. But for the most part, I still like most of them. So number 9 is tag some people. So I chose 3 different groups three different channels to tag. I'm going to tag the Bookish Bryants, I'm going to tag Alan Braswell, and I'm going to tag Seeking Stories. And if you guys have done this and I just missed it, I apologize. But I'd like to see their answers on these stories, on this tag. And so this has been my self-aware reader tag. And I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, go check out Steve Donahue's channel and Courtney Ferrier. And go check out their channels. I'm going to leave the links in the description. Thank you for watching BookTube. Have a great day.